Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here. Today we're going to be discussing The Outer Worlds. Now this is a game that we've just got to look at the Game Awards just a few weeks ago, and a lot of you have commented to me down in my comment section trying to get my opinion about this game. Now, of course, the footage on your screen is from Fallout New Vegas. This is not footage from The Outer Worlds, so if you hadn't seen any video of the game yet, I didn't want you to get confused. I'm sure most of you already pieced this together, but just in case someone hadn't, I don't want anyone to get confused. I don't like to use I don't like to put gameplay trailers in my videos. I know if you want to see that, I'm sure if you're interested in this game, you've probably seen the same trailer that I have about 50 times because everyone's using the same footage in their video. And of course, I think Game Informer is the one who had the video where they went down to take a look at the game at the studio. So they have some more extended footage. If you're interested in that, you can check that out. But I don't like to use other people's footage just in case there's any copyright issues. Today I'm going to be bringing you my overall feelings about it and a couple of things that I like and a couple things that I might be a little bit leery of, but let's just get into it right away. So of course, this is the game that has everyone all in a tizzy because it is the latest game from Obsidian, and the way that they decided to roll the game out at the Game Awards, they put out a little bit of shade at Bethesda with the whole from the original creators of Fallout. And so, of course, this led to some instant speculation and comparisons being drawn between this game, The Outer Worlds, and Fallout New Vegas, which, of course, was also developed by Obsidian. But we have to remember, that game was produced so long ago that it's really not the same people working on this game. The directors are different. It's not going to be the same people involved. It's a different writing team. Now, I'm sure there might still be some people hanging around. I know when it comes to the Fallout franchise and Obsidian, Interplay, Black Isle Studios, In Exile Studios, you know, all these different companies, all these guys have shifted around so much. There's so many different names. You could do a 90-minute documentary trying to be like, okay, he worked there at this point, this guy worked on this game at that point, these two collaborated on here, then they went off to form this. I mean, you would have to do hours of research just to sort of piece it all together, who worked where, when. So let's just say, okay, The Outer Worlds is coming out. It's developed by the current iteration of Obsidian, and it's directed by two guys who worked on the first two Fallout games. Now, when it comes to The Outer Worlds, I've seen some people already raising concerns, saying they're not sure if they like the humor involved in the game. They say maybe it seems a little bit too wacky, and maybe they were hoping for a little bit more of a serious tone. But to those people, I got a question. I mean, if you liked the original two Fallout games, those did have that sort of odd, quirky sense of humor. And some of these other people who've worked on some of these other games, Obsidian has helped with games like Wasteland 2, which also had that weird, dark, quirky sense of humor. And, you know, as long as it's done right, it can be done very well. Now, the question is, and this is one of my concerns with The Outer World, the comedy sort of seems to be going a little bit wackier than normal, although Obsidian does have some comedic moments in all their games. However, can they sustain it for an entire game? It almost has a bit of a Borderlands vibe going on, where it seems like they're going for constant jokes and constant little plays on words, which is fine if it's done properly, but is it going to wear thin over the course of a few dozen hours? Now, I've played a few Obsidian games in my time. I don't play every Obsidian game that's come out, but for the most part, the writing is usually pretty well done. So I have a feeling that they will at least put together a competent effort as far as the writing goes. Now, another concern that we have to look at is whether or not the combat is going to be any good. Now, the directors of the game have come out, and it seems like they're hedging their bets a little bit as far as the gunplay goes. They say that they're trying to make it feel as good as possible, but it does feel, in some of the quotes that they've put out, that they are hedging their bets just a little bit, letting you know that, hey, the gunplay might not be exactly a top-of-the-line shooter, but they say that there's going to be different ways and different methods for you to get around in every situation. They did say that the melee combat, they say they're very proud of, and that they feel that they really nailed the melee combat, but like I said, they are sort of warning us ahead of time that the gunplay might not necessarily be the greatest. So just keep that in mind, something to keep in your mind on moving forward. And they also have come out and said not to expect this to be necessarily a AAA game. Now, in the promo trailer that they showed us at the Game Awards, it does sort of appear like this is going to be sort of a polished, AAA type game, but they have come out and let us know, no, this is sort of like a B tier type game. A AA game is sort of what they're calling it. So keep your expectations in check. Now, this also is not going to be an open world game. They're going for more of the open zone approach, which is totally fine with me. I've said this before in other videos. I am getting sick of just every game being an open world, and so this might be a nice change of pace, sort of a smaller, the areas will all be zoned off and you can just sort of explore them and go about them and do different quests in each area, as opposed to just having one giant open map sort of to overwhelm you. That method, I think, is kind of, it needs to be scaled back a bit. Open worlds have gotten out of hand, so it is nice to see this sort of thing. And if they have a nice experience, just because they say it's a AA game, well, there's other games that I would put in that category, sort of like Divinity Original Sin 2. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a short experience. It just is not going to be on the big, they said it's not going to be on the same type scale as Fallout New Vegas. So it still could be a meaty RPG experience. And from what we've seen, there are going to be a lot of fantastic dialogue choices, which is what I am most excited about, because role-playing games a lot of times, especially in the last couple of years, you get these binary choices. You can be a good guy, you could be a bad guy, or maybe sometimes a little bit in between. But for the most part, even some of the well-respected RPGs, you sort of just you're given two choices. They're like, oh wow, there's so much choice in this game, and a lot of times there's often not as much choice as they try to lead you to believe. But Obsidian always has done a pretty good job, and other developers like them, like Larian Studios with Divinity Original Sin, some of these smaller second-tier sort of developers do a much better job when it comes to giving you choice. And I think what a lot of us, myself included, have been missing is a sort of 3D, fully realized RPG world, as opposed to sort of these isometric top-down RPG experiences with more of a turn-based strategy system, which I do enjoy. But it seems like when it comes to these type of RPGs that do provide you with a lot of choice, it seems like that's what we get a lot of the time, is just that sort of similar style to what Divinity Original Sin 2, Pillars of Eternity, that sort of game, those CRPG type of games. And it's nice to see more of a 3D approach, like Obsidian did with Fallout New Vegas. They had that full world around you with that same sort of dialogue system, and that's something that I've been looking forward to. It's something that we haven't seen very often in a while. Of course, Bethesda has completely thrown that out of the Fallout game and the Fallout franchise altogether. So when I saw the dialogue system in place, in action, in some of the videos that we've seen for the Outer Worlds, that got me very excited. Honestly, that's the thing that I am most looking forward to in the game, is a chance to do some actual role-playing. And they have said that they've done a very thorough job of making sure that no matter what type of character you want to build, no matter what type of scenarios you want to set up, they're going to give you ways to get through every encounter. They even said if you come up across maybe a fight that's too difficult for you, there are going to be other ways around it. And they even went out, they threw a little bit of shade at Deus Ex. They said, we're not going the Deus Ex route where, hey, we're just going to put vents everywhere, so one of the ways you can go through is just to sneak through every level in a vent. So they're going to put some, seems like they're going to put some more thought into the role-playing mechanics, which is nice. And they have sort of a perk and flaw system similar to what it reminded me of Wasteland 2, where you might have some serious flaws, but they'll also have a nice hefty perk to go alongside it. So that's going to sort of form your character as you go through the game. And I haven't really delved too deep into the leveling up system. I haven't really gone that far into it, because honestly, I kind of want to be surprised by this game. This is something that I have on my radar for sure. We don't have a release date yet. We think it's going to be in 2019. They said it's going to be in 2019, but until I see a hard and fast release date with any game, I'm going to take all of that with a grain of salt. Microsoft did just acquire Obsidian Studios, so that's something to keep in mind. And they have said that it's going to be available on PS4 and Steam and whatnot, so it's not just going to be an Xbox exclusive. So we'll see if that remains that way going forward. I believe it will be. The question is Microsoft going to throw them a little bit of extra cash to sort of polish this game up so they can bump up the studio headed forward, or is Microsoft just telling them to rush this out the door so they can get to work on Microsoft's next product? Or is Outer Worlds going to be maybe a new franchise in the Xbox Microsoft stable? We don't really know. Now, headed forward with this game, I'm definitely going to be covering it, but I'm probably I'm not going to be doing constant videos. It's funny because a lot of the Bethesda fanboy channels have all started pumping out video after video with the Outer Worlds. I'm sure if you're familiar with the channels I'm referring to, you've seen it. These guys have already started to abandon Fallout 76, which is no shocker, but they've latched onto this in a serious way, which is pretty funny to see. It definitely is something that I found a lot of enjoyment in when I start seeing these guys spam videos for the Outer Worlds, because they realize that their Bethesda gravy train has run a bit dry this holiday season. So that's not to say that The Outer Worlds is a bad game or that they shouldn't cover it. It is just something that I found pretty humorous. You see all these guys now jumping onto Outer Worlds coverage, trying to latch onto that Fallout fan base because they know that the tides have turned against them in the court of public opinion, and of that there can be no doubt. But anyway, my overall feeling about the game is that I am looking forward to it. The role-playing elements of the game do look very enticing. I'm into that. The world looks interesting. The art design, I'm fine with. Some people are turned off by it. They say it looks a little bit too Borderlandsy, and the comedy seems a little bit too wacky. And I can understand that. If that's not your sort of game, I can totally understand that. And if you're disappointed by that, hey, I'm sorry. This is the route they're taking. I'm actually okay with it. This is something that I can get into. Like I said at the beginning of the video, as long as it's done right and the comedy doesn't start to wear thin around the 5 or 6 hour mark, as long as they keep hitting their notes, it should be totally fine. Based on what I've seen, I think this is the sort of game that I can get into, that sort of tongue-in-cheek, little wacky sort of comedy. I can get down with that in a setting such as this, sort of this outer reaches of the galaxy, you know, just wild, reckless abandon going on. I can get into that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep my expectations in check, and I would suggest everyone else does the same thing. People are already turned to 11 on this, and I would suggest just tone it down a little bit. Take everything with a grain of salt. Just don't expect the sun and the stars, and maybe we'll, at the end of the year, next year, we'll be talking about this game as being a great RPG that we all played. But let's keep our expectations realistic, please. That's all I got to say. Anyway, that's it for me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I know a lot of people are excited about this game, and I do know I did see some people who said that they are definitely turned off by the artistic style, the design choices of the game so far. So we'll see what happens there, and hopefully we'll get some more information. Like I said, I'm going to definitely be getting this game and keeping an eye on it, but I'm not going to be doing a bunch of daily update videos. That's just overkill, and I think it's a bit nonsense. So I'm not going to be doing that, but again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11. But like I said, keep your expectations in check, please. But keep it turned to 11.